There are a lot of industries that are underserved by technology, and I got excitement out of bringing technology to those industries and kind of being the smartest guy in the room, whereas when you're in a technology space like you are, you might not be. So that's what gets me excited, is providing solutions in a way that nobody's thinking of, and maybe not the latest and greatest, but in the industry we are in, we're making real change.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari Santiago. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. I'm with Philip John, CEO of Thermaxx, and this is such an exciting story about taking what seems to be kind of a humdrum product and making it modern and exciting, and right here in Connecticut. PJ, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you coming up.
Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, man, it's the Made in America podcast, so we start off with the same two questions. What do you make, and why do you make it?
All right. Well, Thermaxx makes removable insulation jackets for steam components. Steam is a big consumer of energy in the United States. Most people don't know about it. It happens in boiler rooms or under our feet, but it consumes 8% of the energy in the country. And a lot of the components that go into producing that steam are not insulated, and that's a huge waste of energy. So what we do is we make removable insulation jackets that cover those components and help the energy get to where it needs to go.
I mean, that's a pretty cool product, and I definitely want to get into that. I mean, I think people think of steam and steam energy and the old Hartford Steam Company and maybe like steam ships and steam trains, and like don't kind of realize, how many boiler rooms there are and all these like big facilities. And anyway, we get into all that. But, before we get there, I'm always like super fascinated, PJ, about the why. So why Thermaxx? Why are you in manufacturing? What's the why?
All right. Well, I'm an engineer at heart. I really like technology, and I like being able to provide solutions where everyone benefits, or as many people as possible. And I came out of the automotive industry and then went into robotics. And in robotics, I learned that there are a lot of industries that are underserved by technology. And I got excitement out of bringing technology to those industries and kind of being the smartest guy in the room, whereas when you're in a technology space like you are, you might not be. So that's what gets me excited, is providing solutions in a way that nobody's thinking of, and maybe not the latest and greatest, but in the industry we are in, we're making real change.
So I know that kind of getting, and you've brought some really exciting kind of new technology to Thermaxx. But before we get even to that, like talk about your kind of journey from that engineer, and what industries have you brought technology to, and what's the impact that's made before you even got to Thermaxx?
So like I said, my background started off in automotive, and that was really just a learning experience for me. And I went back to school and wanted to get more into kind of product development and marketing side. And I interned for a robotics startup in Pittsburgh called Red Zone Robotics, and we made wastewater robots that inspected sewer pipes. Really? And that's where I really started to see different ways that technology could help a business.
So robots inspecting wastewater pipes, and then where we go from there?
So that business actually ended up getting sold. I partnered up with my former manager in that company. He had gone back to run his family business, which was in asbestos abatement, and they started doing installation work. And this was, a little bit less than 10 years ago. They're selling a green product. They're really selling based on savings, and I feel like people have been getting greenwashed by that point. So,
greenwashed. What's greenwashed?
It's a term where everybody's selling you on how good things are for the environment, and you just kind of get overwhelmed by that.
It becomes not a differentiator. It's just noise, right? Everybody's giving me the green.
Yeah. It's like whitewash, but greenwash.
But greenwash, yeah, exactly. So your buddy's business happened to be here in Connecticut.
Yep.
You're a California kid. So you're up here in Connecticut. And actually, I think you've told the story, or you told me that you've told the story a few times. But I think it's kind of an interesting story how they sort of got into the insulation business, or the asbestos abatement business, which I think came out of the insulation business, which eventually led to this. So just because it's interesting, maybe kind of tell that kind of that background, because it's funny how big things happen on little turns of fate.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me how that stuff happened. So my partner Brian Bannon, his father John was actually a New Haven police officer, got shot in the line of duty, survived and everything, but retired early from the force and was looking for something to do and started and became a pipe insulator. So they did a lot of insulation work at Yale and a lot of places around New Haven. Fast forward maybe 15, 20 years, and asbestos started to become a problem, and everything they'd insulated before that was done with asbestos. So his old customers started calling him back and saying, "Hey, can you guys come in and remove this stuff?" So they actually started an asbestos abatement company, one of the first to be licensed in Connecticut, and started removing the stuff that they'd insulated. Fast forward another 10 or 15 years, and the customers were saying, "Hey, can you put something back on?" So they started.
You helped keep the heat in. Then we had to have you take that off. Now our pipes are getting cold.
Now we need it again. So they started an insulation part of the abatement business, and they were just doing traditional insulation at that point. So they had some skilled insulators, a lot of them who now work for Thermaxx. But they had one job at I think it was Sikorsky, where they had been asked to come in and insulate the same component something like 15 times. They insulate it, work gets done on it, the insulation gets ripped off, they call them back, and the person they were working for said, "Can you guys come up with something? Like, we're happy to keep bringing you in, but we'd really love to be able to re-insulate this ourselves." So they actually came up with a removable insulation jacket, or a pad, they're called in the industry, and started making those. This happened around the same time that the robotics company that I was working at sold to a private equity firm. And so I had moved on. My partner had moved on. He went back to Connecticut to check in on his family business. And they said, "Hey, we've got this abatement thing down. We don't really need your help with this. But if you want to do something with this jacket company or with this jacket segment, go at it." So he took over the jacket thing. It was kind of a side project with the abatement company. But he called me in and said, "Hey, I want to do the same thing for insulation jackets that we did with sewer pipes. I want to bring technology to this. I want to put a sensor on here that tells customers how much they're saving. I really want to do some automation. Like, what can we do here?" So the first thing we did was patented a sensor that does measurement and verification of insulation jackets. We actually ran that as kind of a separate company. We thought we'd go into a lot more sensor stuff. And it just ended up becoming part of the jacket business. And he convinced me to move up here. I think at the time I'd gone from California to Florida. I was living in Miami, and he said, "Look, this is becoming a real thing. We don't need remote engineering support. I need somebody to run this company and take it to the next level." So he convinced me to move up to Connecticut from Miami, which he says is his best sell yet. And he's quite a salesman. So.
Very nice. Just, one thing you and I didn't talk about, I want to come back to Thermaxx, but I'm just interested, like, what did you guys do with robotics in the wastewater business? Like, just kind of walk through the thought process, because I think it's just interesting. The theme that I've sort of got from talking to you is applying technology, and you brought it up yourself, applying technology where technology hadn't been applied before. And I'm just curious to kind of understand this other application, and then how you transfer that to Thermaxx, because there's just so much interesting stuff you guys are doing at Thermaxx. So when you say robots to investigate wastewater, like, what is that, and how did you think of doing that, and what happened there?
Yeah, it's actually it's an interesting story. So little background on wastewater. Most of our stuff was put in the 1950s. After World War II, cities started booming. People were moving in from the country. A lot of infrastructure got put into place. Big sewer pipes down the main roads, lateral lines running to the side streets, and then into the houses. And most of that stuff was designed to last 50 years. Well, the 50s were unfortunately more than
50 years
ago. And the infrastructure is falling apart, and it's very expensive to just dig up a sewer line under something like the Post Road and replace it. So it's become very important for cities to be able to evaluate their infrastructure, see where repairs are needed, and kind of surgically go in there and repair stuff as it fails. And it's a lot of it was failing. So the issue with that is that the way people inspected sewers, the first way they did it was somebody climbed into the big pipes and went through with a little light on his head or a candle and checked it out.
I cannot imagine that smells good.
Not a great job.
No.
But like, as they like to say in the industry, it smells like money. So.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And then, a little bit later, they started putting cameras down in the pipes, and then they have operators. You'll probably see them on the side of the road a lot in box trucks with a camera that's got a cable attached to it, and they just drive through the pipe. And somebody's looking there making multi-million-dollar repair decisions based on a video image and his or her intuition. So that doesn't really work very well.
No, that's prone to error, I would imagine.
Yep. So we came up with at Red Zone the idea of using 3D measuring technology, sonar, automated image processing to try and help make those decisions using numbers and data versus intuition.
Almost like a LiDAR kind of mapping of the inside. So you can almost take the inside, get all the data points, and then put it into like an AutoCAD image or whatever. And then you'd actually be able to see where there were cracks, where there were this, where there was that.
Yep. And very cool. One of our scientists was in mining, and that was one of the first uses of LiDAR was to map underground mines, and it went into sewer pipes, and now we're seeing it all over the place with autonomous cars. But back when we were doing it, it was pretty fledgling and expensive technology.
For those listening that don't know, LiDAR, I don't even know if it's a real word, or just a combination of laser and radar, because I think radar actually uses the sound waves to kind of see where something is. And so this is using sort of laser, which I guess is just really higher precision. And essentially you shine the laser around something, it sees all the data points, and then feeds that back, so you can essentially map what the laser took a picture of in 3-dimensionally, so you could see cracks, depth at a very, very precise, right? Is that a fair description?
Yep. Actually, yeah, light detection and ranging.
Oh, so it's a real thing. Yeah. See, this is where you need an engineer. So, and you can do that under because there's, I presume no light really exists in the sewer pipe, right? Because it's supposed to be whole. So the robot has a light on it, or does it need?
Yeah, they're pretty cool. The visual image always helps to verify what you're looking at. So they have massive lights on some of these some of these lines that we're talking about are 80 to 120 inches in diameter. So we're talking pretty big. Mm-hmm. You need a lot of lighting. Hydraulically tractor-driven robots with massive lights on them, and spinning LiDAR system, and a sonar that goes under the flow. Pretty cool stuff.
It's pretty cool.
And that came about because actually my partner's brother-in-law had purchased the company out of bankruptcy, and the company had previously just done military contracts. One of their first robots actually helped inspect Chernobyl to help with the cleanup efforts there. And it was a make or break business. They'd get these large contracts, 1 or 2 a year, and then if they missed one year, they were in trouble. So we needed to find some way to use this robotic technology in a place that had recurring revenue, and that's where it came about. So kind of full circle. And then with the installation, it's kind of the same thing. It's still pipes, so I guess there's a relationship there. But the installation business itself hadn't changed much in 100 years.
No doubt about it. And one thing you and I talked about before the filming, which I just wanted to touch on because it was really resonated with me, was how many times, and maybe just because, being in IT, for whatever reason, a lot of people tended to store computer equipment where they have their pipes, which anyway, there's probably some concepts there that don't make any sense, but that's what we find sometimes. And what you see is a lot of those pipes where the insulation was installed, where the pipe was built. And to your point, I didn't connect all the dots, but you could see like parts of the insulation were cut out to put something on I never really knew what, obviously some type of maintenance. And so then you would just sort of you follow a pipe and you just see gaps of the insulation. And I guess that's precisely the problem that Thermaxx was looking to fix, which was to say, hey, when you cut the insulation off, the point of the insulation was to keep the heat and the steam most effective. So yeah, we got to do the maintenance, but now we're decreasing the overall effectiveness because heat's escaping, and we can solve that problem.
Exactly. Yep. And like I said, to put it in perspective, 8% of the energy that the U.S. generates goes to making steam. The average facility that we go into can see 10 to 20% savings based on installation. If you take that same 8% and apply it, it's also the same amount of energy that we use for passenger vehicles. If you want to get 1 or 2% efficiency out of every passenger vehicle that you make today, you're going to spend billions and billions of dollars. But you can walk into any boiler room in Manhattan and save 20% of the energy just with our product.
That's pretty amazing. So, I mean, the technology of having a removable, for people that are watching, PJ brought me a nice, they sort of make either it's a 6-pack holder or maybe a lunch thing using their insulation. And there's some technology on here I want to, kind of talk about. But I think what's really interesting is the technology isn't just about a really cool Velcro pack that allows you to insulate, save the 10 to 20%, take it off when you got to maintain, and put it back on. But it goes beyond that. And I think that's, to me, seems like a real differentiator. So can you sort of talk through the IT sort of more, sexier technology that you guys are leveraging?
Yeah. So similar to the person in the box truck who inspects sewer pipes, the way a lot of installation is done is also with a box truck. Somebody will drive out to a facility. They'll have a truck full of materials, sewing machines, all the stuff they need, and they'll go from component to component, tailoring these beautiful jackets or removable or non-removable insulation. We actually have there's a couple of those people on staff who still do that work, and one of the guys, Louis Zia, he's just amazing. He can walk around with a notebook, and he makes this chicken scratch that only he understands. You can call him 2 years later and say, Louis, that job finally closed, and boom, he's designing beautiful patterns, and we're making jackets. The problem is you can't replicate Louis Zia's, unfortunately. No. So we needed a way to do what either Louis could do or that person in the box truck on site could do, and have manufacturing happen in a centralized location. And when we first started, we used to take a bunch of pictures, take notes, put everything in Excel. You'd get a file folder of images and an Excel spreadsheet, and you'd be able to quote and make a job with that. That's great if you need to make 20 or 30 or something, but if you need to make 500 or 1,000 or something, it doesn't work. So
scaling problems.
Exactly. So we had to develop, we decided to first see what was out there, and with our business side, there wasn't much available to do exactly what we wanted. So we developed our own app that talks to Salesforce, where all our information is stored. And when we first go out to site to do a survey, the surveyor, usually a salesperson or one of our technicians, identifies all the components and puts them in this app. And from that point on, that each component is a digital asset in Salesforce, and everything we do gets attached back to that asset. So we take photos of it, we capture metadata about the temperatures that it's running at, how big it is, et cetera, so we can tell the customers how much energy that component is wasting. And then when they move forward with the project, we send somebody back out, they measure, again, using the app, capturing all that information. And then we have a CAD department in-house that pulls that up, designs the jacket patterns, puts them out to production, or we have another app that they scan the stuff as it goes through, so we know who made it and where everything is with a project. And then our guys go back out and install the jackets and take a final photo. So if you were to pull up in our Salesforce instance any jacket we've made in the last 5+ years, you would see from beginning to end kind of the life of that component.
Really? And you down to even knowing how much surface area it's insulating, what the impact of that insulation is, based on the R value of the insulation. Yep. So you know what you're keeping in there. And there's some calculation that says, hey, with this much surface area that was open and now covered, we know how much heat we're keeping in, and that's going to save from having to pump this much more steam through.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, we capture all that, and I should have written down the number, but we can tell you pretty close how much money we've saved and how much energy we've saved as a company or through our customers over the last several years, and how much we're continuing to save just by having our product out there.
So do you guys write these? That's very rewarding. Yeah. Going back to the idea of like to be in technology, and technology that benefits the most people possible. I mean, the amount of benefit that can be had through energy savings from carbon reduction, fossil fuel emissions, cost savings, which helps save jobs. I mean, the impacts there are massive and big. Did you guys develop these apps in-house? Like you wrote them?
We did. Yep.
I mean, so just, hey, we're an installation company, let's find some software engineers. Like, I just listen, this is really exciting for me because I've been talking about, for a long time, years, about the intersection between manufacturing and technology, and like get out there because, there's opportunities for data scientists, for app developers, in these environments if we just get a little creative about how to do it. So like I've been really looking forward to having this conversation, PJ. So, I mean, I guess you just had the experience. What inspired you to do it? What did you tell these app guys? Were they people you knew? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, I guess coming from the robotics side, it's a bunch of scrappy engineers figuring out how to do stuff, and nobody likes to hear that it can't be done. So that I kind of brought some of that mentality to the company. I'm sure if we were a more traditional installation company, developing an app would be the last thing anybody would want to do. And even my partner, who's done a ton of construction projects, said that building an app was the hardest thing he's ever done. And because with construction or demolition, when you're done, you're done.
Yeah, that's right.
You step away and you admire your work. But with an app, things are changing and there's always problems. But we got lucky. We actually we found a great developer when I was down in Florida still, and he's actually now a partner in one of our other businesses. So him and his team have done good work for us. And that is probably the hard part, finding some good talent. But once you have it, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, and when you got into it, do you know a lot about it? So you were able to kind of project management, like be sort of like the product manager, or that's what kind of the software partner does? Like who's kind of, because listen, people that have gone into software projects and, there are some, sometimes it can turn into, reminds me of, have you seen the movie The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, Yep. I always remember that scene where he like finally trucks up the last bucket of water and he dumps it into the bathtub and he puts the last bucket in. He's going to turn around to get in the bath and the tub just falls through the, right. Yep. And so I feel like people that have done these dev projects, they start off with these great ideas and it feels like every time you think you're done, the tub falls through the floor and so like, how did you conquer that, the getting it on track so that it could have some ROI and just to become, the money pit?
Yeah, well, from the sewer days, the mantra is just get it in the hole, get the robot down the pipe, right? And then figure it out. And I kind of use the same mentality with any changes actually that are technology related. Rather than just go in and try and make the technology do the change first, prove it out the traditional way. Like, let's say we need to have a form that does this. Oh, we want to put the form in the app is usually the first question. Like, no, let's do it with paper. Let's figure out what works, what doesn't work, who gets it, what the next steps are, kind of map out the whole process and really do it the old fashioned way. And then once you have that, translate it into the technology. And that's kind of what we did when we first built the app. We had the spreadsheets and the photos and the output. So we knew we had the process down. We just had to automate that process. And I think if you try and just start with automation and not knowing the process, that's when you can really get into trouble.
Dude, that's gold. That's really gold right there. And it reminds me of a quote, which I'll probably screw up a little bit, but it was the Bill Gates quote, right? It's like technology applied to an inefficient process only amplifies the inefficiency. And then the reverse is also true, right? And so I think it's really interesting there of sort of saying, hey, listen, number one, if you try it the old fashioned way, like with a piece of paper, you can get that into the field quick. Yeah. Right. We always think like the MVP, right? Minimum viable product.
Exactly. Yep.
And you can MVP a piece of paper, bing, bang, boom, and then sort of see where it plays out. And so it's really about, and this is something I think manufacturers can connect to, it's the iterative approach, right? It's the sort of the continuous improvement, the Kaizen, the PDCA, just like, let's get something out there, test it, see if it works, improve it. And then it sounds like one of the things you're saying that improves it is the app. It's just amplifying what you're already doing.
Yep. Yeah, and there's benefits that we hadn't even considered when we started. We can turn quotes around with savings in a day. It still takes everyone else weeks to do. We can make changes on the fly. There's just all kinds of information that we build a portal for our customers now. They log in and see all their jackets on a web portal. And it's something we can do just because we have all the information there, but it's not a product that we'd set out to build on day one. So, dude,
something, it's actually, it's one of the things I'll just take on right now. And I think you can talk about in a second how it's used in real life, because I'm sure this isn't it, but the gift you brought here has a little tag on it with a QR code. And if I take the QR code and scanned it with my phone, it immediately, like instantly brings me to a page that sort of gives me all the stats about where this thing went, who it was to, clue what it was used for, how many linear feet of pipe it's insulating, 0 in my particular case. But it was really cool. And what it made me realize is, and this is just something again that I think is really important for Connecticut manufacturers and really all businesses, which is if you're going to lean into the future, if you just do it right, you do the iterative process, you keep applying the technology, what you find out is things you didn't even know were going to be great end up accruing down the line. And there's always a million reasons not to do something, but I think it's finding the reason to do it, getting it done, and continuing down the path. Seems like it's unlocked a lot of gold for you guys.
It really has. Yeah, it defines our business. We didn't set out to become a platform business, but that's really what we are now. And I think I mentioned when we spoke before, but our new strategy has been, before we were growing organically, we were hiring salespeople. We're trying to get salespeople into every boiler room in the country. Right now, our goal is, why are we trying to get in our salespeople in every boiler room in the country when there's somebody who goes into every boiler room in the country every day, at least one person. So we're now trying to get our app out to the hands of our customers. Or potential customers, and really grow the business that way.
Dude, that part really excited me, which was the idea of saying, wait a minute, the idea of trying to figure out how to scale up a sales force, no pun intended on the software, but scale up a sales force and just get boots on the ground in boiler rooms, all over the country. It's a massive undertaking.
It's hard.
Very hard. And the idea of saying, hey, you and I talked about really briefly, like the newest iPhone, has some LiDAR sort of technology built into it. If we can just have them go to the App Store, download our free app and take some pictures that we can upload and measure from here, like game changer.
Yep.
I mean, then you don't even have to.
That's our dream.
Then the dream isn't even national. Then the dream is global.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. The app and the pictures can go anywhere. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah. No, that'll be the day.
that'll be the day. So talk about, like, let's go back to a little bit on the manufacturing, just basic side. Because the other thing that I mentioned to you is I went to the website and I noticed the team at Thermaxx is just wildly diverse. And that was like really interesting to me. And maybe just sort of like talk about that and sort of the different types of people. Because you've got, insulation and creating the insulation jackets, which involves sort of sewing and sort of basic manufacturing. You've got app development, sales force, sales team, marketing, lead gen, engineering. It's a big mix of people. So just sort of like talk about the team and how you guys are building and how you think about that team aspect.
Yeah, we've got some great diversity, and I'll tell you, from moving. From never having lived in Connecticut, it's not something that I ever imagined. From outside Connecticut, I think of everybody here as like pink shorts and pop collars and sailboats. But my partner actually grew up in Milford, and it's a very nice all-American town. And we do our work in West Haven. It's a very diverse community. And one of the things that impressed me the most about Connecticut was just the number of household names of businesses that have either roots here or presence here, and it's very inspiring. So to be doing a manufacturing company here around all these great names is awesome. At Thermaxx we have people from all different areas. We have our CAD department that's a lot of it's probably skews on the younger side. A lot of graduates from technical schools around here. A lot of people who've been homegrown. But you walk in there and it's kind of our Thermaxx NASA. There's not quite as nice as here, but screens all around and TVs showing progress and stuff like that. And then you go out to the production floor and we've got sewing machines humming away, jackets on racks. So again, monitors kind of displaying where everything is. It's just, and then you go out into the field and we've got our field crews who do the measuring and the install and the pipe installation. So it's a really diverse group. And obviously the sales organization, their salespeople are their own type of thing. We're just all over the place. It's great. And I love being able to give people the option to either grow with the company or use us as a stepping stone. We're not We're not trying to lock anybody in, but we have a lot of people who've kind of made Thermaxx their, I think they're going to work here until they stop working. And we have other people who've come and gone. We had a couple guys who had been translators for the army in Afghanistan and came over here and had Thermaxx as one of their first positions. And now one of them is running a trucking company and the other one moved out to Ohio. It's great. And during COVID, we were able to keep everybody working during the first shutdown. It's a nice family atmosphere. It started as a family business, so I guess some of that's to be expected, but it's really continued.
What's it like being kind of the CEO of a business that started off as a family business and still has some family members in, and you're not one of the family?
I feel like pretty much one of the family.
You're in there now, the adopted son.
But it's actually an interesting lesson, and we're going through it with some of our other efforts now. We started off under the wings of a bigger business and using a lot of those resources. So, we used accounting from the demolition company. We had, if there was ever a cash crunch, they could move cash over. And a couple of years ago, that company actually sold, and we were legitimately on our own. Luckily, we had been weaning ourselves off of them, before that. But we grew up, and that's when my partner kind of took a step back and really let me take over for running the company.
And so you talked about, not to circle back, but I did want to ask you about sort of workforce, because it is such an important part. And you said you kind of worked with some of the technical schools to pull some of the CAD people. I'm just curious kind of how you think about workforce development. How do you, as the company continues to grow, how are you finding, how you work in the farm system, as it were, to find talent? What's your thoughts on that, PJ, and how are you guys working that?
Connecticut's got some good resources. We work pretty closely with UNH and because they're just down the road from us, and Platt Tech also, because they're very close. So if we ever need talent, they're good at providing either interns or putting the word out there for full-time positions. We also have done some great internships through CT Next that helps sponsor some of our engineering interns and stuff like that. So I guess the rewarding part of it is being able to getting to the size where we have a career path that people can see. When I first started, and we had half as many people, maybe less, 20 employees, and now we're up to 75. When we had 20 employees, it was kind of a flat structure. Everyone had their job to do, and unless they wanted my job, there wasn't really room for advancement. And now we've grown, and we used to have our salespeople doing all their own energy audits. We had field technicians that just did install and rework. Well, and now those field technicians that have advanced up are now doing energy audits full time, and our salespeople are focused on selling. And we have new technicians coming in that are doing the installs. And then we recently, very exciting, moved one of our survey technicians to Chicago to set up a region there. So he's kind of progressed all the way through from installing jackets to doing surveys under a salesperson to kind of setting up a region by himself. And there's parallels in CAD and production and everywhere else where people can see if they want to do the same job every day, and some people do, that's fine. And if they want to advance, there's plenty of room for that. So.
Yeah, listen, it takes all kinds. And I think I just had talked about this with somebody just recently about, for at least for me, having run a business for 20 years now and had a similar experience, right? It was literally me, and we've grown, quite a bit since then, and some, similar 75 people, what have you. And just having the opportunity to see people grow and develop and be here for a long time and see their life progress and opportunities, it's really rewarding, and it makes it really fun.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, PJ, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to run over to rapid fire round of questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, man, here we go. Red Sox or Yankees?
I thought you said no politics. I can't answer that.
No answer. All right, fair enough. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Not COVID times.
Not COVID times.
Man, I even prepared for this. I like them both.
You like them both? No, yeah. You can't pick one over the other.
No.
Just time off is good.
I have to mix it up.
There you go. I like it. iPhone or Android?
Android.
Sports car or SUV?
Sports car.
Favorite business book?
Business Adventures.
Business Adventures. What's that about?
It was on Bill Gates' reading list many years ago, and it's a story of, I think, 6 or 7 different companies. It's a little bit dated, but the stories have really stuck with me. So it's kind of one that always comes to mind when I'm.
Oh, I'm gonna check that out. I have not heard of that one. If you could do something, PJ, other than be the CEO of Thermaxx, and you had to do it, it could be anything in the whole world, what would you do with your time?
Well, parallel universe me would either be a fighter pilot, probably a desk jockey at this point, or managing product development at an automotive company.
Oh, very cool. I resonate with that fighter pilot thing, dude. Oh man, growing up watching Top Gun, I was like, that's me. What's one thing that you learned early in your career or early in your life that you think helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
I think one of the things I have to keep reminding myself is stick with it a little bit longer. Early on, I kind of jumped to the greatest and latest thing. And then 5 years down the road, you look at the people who stuck with it, and they're doing great. Man, I mean, graduating right around the .com bubble like really drives that home. Everyone was doing that stuff. We just moved on, and yeah, some of them are there. So that's probably.
Well, that's a good one. Stick with it. Got to get over that. There's a book called The Dip, which I think about all the time, right? Which is just sort of like the exuberance at the beginning. And then to get to the other side, the real success, you got to like kind of trudge through it. So
yeah, I had a good mentor that said, and I'm not sure where he got this, but basically if you do something long enough, you get in the groove. If you're in the groove too long, it becomes a rut. And if you're in the rut too long, it becomes your grave. So just try and stay in the groove.
That's right. Got to find that groove. Oh, I like that. What's one thing you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go and tell young PJ, it'd really benefit him?
It would probably be that sticking with it thing.
Yeah, stay with it. Yeah, you learned that, helped you. And if you started that earlier, it would have helped you sooner. Dude, I really appreciate that. PJ, it's been really awesome kind of talking about what you guys are up to at Thermaxx. I think it's really innovative. I think it's really cool. I'm super psyched you guys are doing it in Connecticut. And I look forward to seeing you guys take that app all over the world.
All right. Thanks for letting us share our story. It's great.
You got it.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. You know, my goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.